Hey, thanks for joining us today again online at the meeting place. My name's Tony. I have the privilege of being the pastor here. And today I've got a special treat for you because I got to share with you a personal friend of mine, Pastor Dave Nelson, all the way from Kenosha, Wisconsin. Doesn't that just sound like a place that you want a vacation this summer with your fam? Okay, he's going to share a message with us today on mental health, which is so fitting because of the time that we're in. There's so many reasons for people to get down right now as we navigate these things that we're going through. So it's just a great message for us today. And before you watch it, I want you to know, don't judge him based on the artwork on the walls behind him, okay? He's got questionable taste, it's obvious, but he also has a great message for us today. So you can watch it right now.
My name's Dave. It is good to be with you. I always love hearing stories of what's happening at your church, and I hope you are surviving in all the craziness. Because here's what we know. With all of the uncertainty that's been happening, with all of the different rules and laws that seem to change day by day, the pressure keeps building. There's parenting pressure, there's relationship and marriage pressure, there's financial pressure, there's pressures related to our career, there's pressure that comes with being lonely, there's pressure that comes with the uncertainty about the future, and all of those pressures add up and they start to affect us. They just do. And here's the deal, they affect us all differently based on our unique circumstances and situations. And so sometimes you look at someone and say, I don't know why they're so restless, or I don't know why they believe the way they believe or think the way they think. It's because all of us are being impacted and affected differently. Now, years ago, like many of you, I made the decision that I was going to cut the cord for cable and satellite TV because I wanted to save money. So I got a small antenna, put it on my roof, put another one in my attic. About a month ago, I decided that I wanted to have broadcast over-the-air television run to my television on the second floor in the hallway because that's where my workout equipment is. And so I said to my son, Jaden, I need your help running cable to this TV that hangs in this workout area. And he looked at me with all the sarcasm in the world and said, Dad, I've never even seen you on the elliptical or treadmill. I don't know why you care about the TV. And I reminded him of his place on the org chart for our family and said, dude, I need you to help me and stop mocking me, all right? So I run maybe 30 or 40 feet of cable through the attic, down through the wall. Got to be super careful because you obviously don't want to come through the ceiling. And so I tried a bunch of different drill bits. I finally found the one that worked. And I know some of you are like, how does Dave own something like that? That should be illegal. But I'm telling you, I just went through there a few times and eventually made my way through. And I now have antenna, now have over-the-air television in my for my TV in the hallway with my workout equipment. So, yay for me. 2 weeks ago, I'm mowing my lawn and I look up and I happen to notice 2 holes in the side of my house. And I can't figure out for the life of me where these holes are from. And then it hits me. When I was drilling down through the attic, I was drilling at a slight angle. And so twice I must have gone through the vinyl siding without even realizing it. So now I've got 2 holes in my vinyl siding. I had to call out my brother Scott, who's in the trades. And Scott was kind enough. He comes over with like a 5-foot extension ladder. And I actually, believe it or not, climbed up on it, got some caulk, and repaired the damage that I had done. But it was fascinating to me because I'm like, dude, I have 2 holes in my house. It would have gone unnoticed for a very, very long time if I hadn't happened to notice while mowing the lawn. Now, I bring that up because right now, I think that's what COVID-19 is doing to so many of us, right? We don't notice the damage that's happening. We don't notice how we're being affected. And I'm confident it may take weeks or months or even years to truly see the impact and the toll that the coronavirus lockdown has had on so many of us. And this is especially true as it relates to mental health. So I want to talk about that. Now, mental health is a big umbrella, and so let me just define it as like this. Mental health is how we feel, think, and act. Right? It's all the dots connecting those pieces of how we feel, think, and act. And so obviously, if our minds aren't healthy, it's affecting us in dramatic ways, right? There's depression, which isn't a little bit of sadness. I wake up one day and I'm not feeling the best. No, it's like this dark cloud over you for an extended period of time. It affects us with in the area of fear. There's excessive fear. There's anxiety. We're incredibly moody. Our emotions are all over the place, right? When our mental health is being impacted negatively, we stop being ourselves. We withdraw socially. We have a tendency to run from our problems, which is why right now, almost every study that's being done as it relates to COVID-19 is saying there is a big spike happening in the area of mental health. And there are other articles who are saying, well, it's not happening as quickly as maybe those articles seem to indicate, but we predict it's about to spike in a big, big way. So I want you to hear this. 2,000 years ago, Jesus spends 40 days in the wilderness. It's a very emotional experience. He returns from the wilderness and he goes to the town he grew up in, the town of Nazareth, and he goes to the synagogue. Apparently, he had done this on numerous occasions because he walks into the synagogue and they hand him a scroll. You know, they didn't have Bibles like we do today, nice leather-bound Bibles. You flip through the pages. No, they had scrolls. And so what Jesus does is he takes this scroll of the book of Isaiah and he opens it. Here's what we read. Jesus unrolled the scroll and found the place where this was written. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim the captives will be released, that the blind will see, that the oppressed will be set free, and that the time of the Lord's favor has come. So Jesus reads this, and he sits down, and everybody's fixated on him. They're looking at him, and he says, today the scriptures have been fulfilled in your presence. Isaiah says this is what the Messiah is going to be like, and I want you to know I am the Messiah. Mic drop right there. Jesus says, I am going to stand with those who suffer, and I am going to free the captives, and I'm going to release those who are imprisoned. They're imprisoned mentally, they're imprisoned emotionally and spiritually. And so I just got to tell you, if you are suffering right now from mental health related issues, or if you find yourself suffering in the weeks and months to come, I want you to know Jesus is with you. Jesus stands with those who suffer. And if you are suffering, it may be very difficult to understand this or grasp this or believe this, but I promise you, you can experience peace, you can experience calm, you can experience comfort, you can experience joy, and you can experience a sense of purpose even in the midst of your suffering. On one occasion, Jesus is teaching and he makes a reference to himself, and here's what he says. He says, I am the good shepherd. Now, we don't have to do a big study and do a deep dive onto what first century shepherds did if they were a good shepherd. I mean, it's pretty obvious. If you're a good shepherd, you're going to care for, protect your sheep. You're going to watch over your sheep. You're going to feed your sheep. You're going to guide your sheep. And so in the midst of your suffering, I want you to know Jesus is a good shepherd. He is with you and he is for you. But that does not mean that life is going to be easy. As humans, every day we wake up, there's new sets of problems, there's new struggles. We're constantly being bombarded with things in life. And over time, those things affect our mental health. They affect how we think and how we feel and how we act. And so I want to say this. If your mental health is being negatively affected in this season, or if in the weeks and months to come, you find it being negatively affected, there are a few things you need to know. Number one, you are not alone. You are not alone. All right? Mental health affects children and teenagers. It affects young adults. It affects grandmas and grandpas. It affects pastors and daycare workers and guys in the trades and women in the trades and businessmen and businesswomen and celebrities. I mean, mental health just doesn't discriminate. There are more than 200 classified forms of mental illness, which means we're all going to struggle at some point. But the truth is, we feel very, very isolated when we're struggling. We feel very alone. A few weeks ago, there was a mother here in Wisconsin, God's country, who saw that one of her friends had posted on Facebook about a car cruise. And they said, everyone's welcome. And they said, we're going to meet at a local school, and then we're going to line up, and then we're going to drive around town for fun. So this mother, Tara, she's got 5 kids under the age of 10. And so she says, man, I needed this break. It's been claustrophobic in the house. We need to get out. And so she gets them all excited, and they decide, okay, we're going to participate. And so they show up to this car cruise. Well, apparently, Mama Tara did not realize that car cruise meant vintage cars and hot rods and muscle cars. All right, she says, I showed up in my Chrysler Town and Country. Her kids were dressed up in Halloween costumes thinking this was going to be a big parade. And she posts this. She said, I didn't have the heart to tell them that they weren't going to be in a parade after all. So I put on my big girl pants, I held my head high, and the kids and I spent the next hour driving through our small town, waving and smiling. How can you not love that? But if you've ever struggled or battled with mental health, which I'm sure you have, and if you haven't, I promise the day's coming where you're going to, that's what it feels like. It feels like I'm out of place here. I know I shouldn't be here. I'm going to smile. I'm going to wave. I'm going to shake hands. I'm going to pretend everything's okay. But deep down, I know that something is not right. There's a disconnect between how I act outwardly and what I'm feeling inwardly. But I want you to know you are not alone. Number two, if you battle mental health issues, when you battle them, should I say, you're not unspiritual. Now, you feel unspiritual, but come on, some of the great giants of faith, people in the scriptures that we admire, they struggled with mental health. Moses, the well-loved leader of the Jewish people, he gets to a point, he's under so much pressure in trying to lead the Israelites that he says, and he vents his frustration to God. He says, I can't carry all these people by myself. The load is far too heavy. If this is how you intend to treat me, just go ahead and kill me. Do me a favor and spare me this misery. Haven't you felt like that at times? Like, God, I'm so done. Jeremiah, a Jewish prophet who would often speak on behalf of God to the Jewish people, he becomes so depressed that he asks this question: why was I ever born? He says, my entire life has been filled with trouble, sorrow, and shame. That's how he felt. Job, who's considered one of the godliest people who ever lived, he goes through a long season of pain and loss and uncertainty, and he comes to this conclusion. He says, I'd rather die than suffer like this. I hate my life and don't want to go on living. David, who was the king of Israel, he wrote more about the greatness of God than really anyone else in the scriptures. And at a low point in his life, he just says, darkness is my closest friend. Over and over and over. We just read about these great men and women who are struggling. And I love that they're so realistic about it. They don't apologize for what they're going through. They don't act like it's a sin. They don't act like there's something wrong with them. They're just saying, I have to learn to relate to God in the midst of my anxiety, in the midst of my fear, in the midst of my insecurity. And so I just got to tell you, if you're ever going through life and you bump into someone wearing a t-shirt, or maybe you're driving down the road and you see a church sign that says, too blessed to be depressed, I just want you to know you don't have to believe it. That's a lie. We're human beings. There are times we get depressed. There are times we get, there's a dark cloud hanging over our life. There's times where we just feel insecure and we feel lost and we don't know how to respond in a healthy way to the things going on around us. You are not alone. You are not unspiritual. You're also not crazy, right? You're complex, but you're not crazy. I mean, just think about your brain for a second. One of our organs, right? Our brain. 1,000 MacBook Pros do not have the storage capacity of our brain. And it's constantly taking in and processing information and connecting the dots. Our brain affects our blood pressure. Our brain affects how we see things and how we interpret the things we see. It affects our heart rate. Our brain affects all of those things. And so King David of Israel, just thinking about his body, writes, God, you made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. He says, thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. Listen, you are complex and I am complex. Our brain is just one of 78 organs in our body. It is a supercomputer. Now, when a computer breaks, when a computer has a glitch, what happens? We reset it. We reset the phone. We reset the laptop, right? We reset it. And unfortunately, when our brains have a glitch, when we're obsessed with something, we can't stop obsessing, when maybe we've been diagnosed with something more severe, like borderline personality disorder or maybe bipolar, when we're overly moody, when our anxiety is out of control, it's very easy to tell ourselves that we're crazy. And it's very easy for people to look at you and tell you you're crazy, but we're not crazy. 100 years ago, when people had serious mental health issues, nobody really knew how to help them. In fact, psychiatric hospitals, they didn't know what to do. There's a museum in St. Joseph, Missouri. It's called the Glore Museum. And it actually is a museum that highlights some of what happened at the state mental hospital over the years, back when this hospital started in like the 1870s. and for decades how patients were treated. Because when someone was diagnosed as mentally ill, whatever that meant, some of the treatments given to them were so unacceptable, it's ridiculous. They were burned. Some of them were shocked, shackled, kicked, dunked, punctured. Others were killed, all in an effort to make someone normal or make them whole again. Just 3 different images I have for you, just to kind of give you an idea of how people were treated in the early parts of the 19th century and late 1800s, or 20th century in the late 1800s. If you struggled with ADHD, that was considered like, we got to get this person help. So they have this huge hamster wheel at the state mental hospital. It wasn't called that, but that's what it was. And you would be put in it for a day or 2 at a time just to calm you down. There was something else called the lunatic box. And so patients were put into a standing position in this coffin-like box until they could calm down. Then there was the tranquilizing chair. People would be put in this chair, strapped down for up to 6 months at a time until they could calm them down. And I could point fingers and I could mock this institution and say, who the heck allowed this to go on? But here we are, more than 100 years later, and we still don't really know how to treat someone who's battling mental health issues. Right? If you're battling cancer, if you've got some heart disease, if you break a bone, we know how to diagnose that. And for the most part, we know how to treat it. Right? But if you have mental illness, there isn't a blood test. There's not a scan. There's not some ultrasound that will definitively conclude what the problem is. And so I think we just got to be realistic. There is a lot about mental illness we do not know. But what we do know is that it's out of control. We do know that there are twice as many suicides in the United States every single year as there are homicides. We do know this is out of control. It is a pandemic, depression and anxiety and fear. And so I want you to know you are not alone, you are not unspiritual, and you are not crazy. Number 4, I want you to know this. There is hope. There is. There's a lot of hope. And that's the good news. The bad news is hope isn't going to be handed to you, and it's not going to be handed to me on a silver platter. We got to fight for it. Now, I've battled mental health at many different seasons in my life. A couple years ago, I was in such severe depression that I actually missed Sunday services that I was supposed to be talking at. It was just a very difficult time for me. I spent more time away from the office than I did in the office. And thankfully, the people I was surrounded by were just very loving, caring people, and they allowed me the space that I needed. But I got to tell you, in that season, I constantly felt like I was in a fight. And when you're battling these issues, you do feel like you're in a fight. And you feel like the underdog. But just because you're the underdog doesn't mean you're going to lose. You can win as the underdog. You just got to fight super, super hard. And so I'm going to tell you this. When mental health issues are getting out of control in your life, you can pray. That's important. You can take medication. That's important. But outside of those things, there are some things in your court that you have to decide what you're going to do. There are some things you personally have to fight for. So let's talk about those quickly. One of the things you have to fight for is we have to fight to take care of our body. All right, it's my job to take care of myself, your job to take care of yourself. Over the last several months, with COVID-19 and mask wearing and social distancing, here's what we've all learned. There's not a single governor, there's not a politician, there's not a doctor, there's not a scientist who can force you to do anything. They can tell you, they can suggest to you, but you're going to do what you want to do. And so when it comes to your physical health, nobody's going to force you to do it. You've got to figure out if it's something you value. So Elijah, who was a Jewish prophet, a guy who loved God with all his heart, he gets to a point in his life, he's in a season of his life where he is exhausted, he's depressed, and he wants to die. Here's what he voices to the Lord. He says, I've had enough, Lord. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. He said, I want out of here. Now, it's interesting because God doesn't say, well, I want you to read the Bible and I want you to read read the ancient scriptures and I want you to pray and I want you to just focus on me. No, here's what happened. God says, I want you to take a nap. I want you to get up. I want you to eat some bread, drink some water, and smoke a cigar. Oh, he didn't say smoke a cigar. That would have been a good thing to do, right? He said, I want you to take a nap. I want you to eat bread and I want you to drink some water. And so Elijah does this. And when he does, we read that he has enough strength for the rest of his journey. He's back on the road to recovery. That shouldn't surprise us because nutritionists tell us all the time, what you eat And how much movement you do, exercise, matters a whole lot to your mental health. Diet and exercise. And then on top of that, we could add rest, right? You're never going to find good time to rest, so you have to make time to rest. So you want to win the fight of mental health? You want to learn to manage it and control it? We got to fight to take care of our body. Another thing we need to do is fight to take care of our heart or our emotions. I'm not responsible for how I feel, but I'm certainly responsible for how I manage my feelings. And so I have to do whatever I can to guard my heart. Now, I got to tell you, if I don't guard my heart in regards to the amount of news that I'm taking in or how much social media I'm taking in, I'm being irresponsible, because every study out there says social media affects us in regards to depression and affects us in regards to our mental health more than we can possibly realize. If I'm not guarding the music that I'm listening to, if I'm not being careful about the kind of movies and TV I'm watching, I'm telling you guys, it does affect me. And mama's not going to put restrictions on me. Nobody's going to show up to my house and start putting security cameras in place and locks on my doors and fences around, right? And nobody's going to do that in my life either. I've got to do it. I have to take care of my heart. Now, a group of priests in ancient Israel were in charge of putting together the music. They were like the choir directors. And they write a song that's written out in Psalm 42. It's a song for those who are struggling with mental health and with depression. And I love the words of the psalm. We're not going to read them all, but in the middle of it, the lyrics ask this question: why am I discouraged? Why is my heart so sad? I will put my hope in God. I will praise him again, my Savior and my God. In other words, when I'm afraid, when I'm discouraged, when I've got anxiety, when I'm insecure, I will remind myself of God's greatness. I will remind myself of God's power. I will use music. I will pray. I will meditate. I will reflect. But I will do whatever I can do to refocus myself on how great God is to get me through this season. So we've got to take care of our physical health. We've got to take care of our heart. Another thing we need to do is we need to fight to take care of our mind. Because you can have all the fame and fortune in the world. You can own mansions, you can have gates and alarm systems and bodyguards. But what life has taught us is that anxiety and depression and fear will make it past those bodyguards. Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, Robin Williams, Aaron Hernandez. The list is endless. And it's so easy to pay attention to the external part of our life rather than the internal, right? It's easy to pay attention to getting our nails done and taking care of our skin and our hair. It's easy to pay attention to like taking care of our cars and organizing our houses and cleaning our houses. And at the end of the day, we do all those things and we forget about the inside of us. But we can change that. We just got to be proactive. I don't know who actually came up with the quote, but I love it. Maybe you've heard it before. Watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Watch your actions, for they become habits. Watch your habits, for they become character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. What are you feeding your mind with? It is your choice. Nobody can force you to feed your mind with certain things. You have to decide, what am I going to limit? Where are the boundaries going to be? And how am I going to proactively feed it with good things? And then finally, you want to win the battle as the underdog? Then you must fight for life-giving relationships. We all need people in our life who just revive us. Because the truth is, there's enough people who are just going to deplete us. There's enough people who are going to drain us. And it's not because they're bad people. Depending on the age, depending on the maturity of your children, it's possible that they drain you, right? Because they always need something from you. It's just the dynamic of the relationship. And so if you want life-giving relationships, you have to decide, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to make it happen. Do not wait for somebody to give you permission to take care of your physical health or to take care of your heart, your emotions, to take care of your mind, or to make sure you have life-giving relationships. You just got to do this yourself. You just got to say, this is what I'm going to do, and then go for it. Well, I pray that God helps you in this season and the seasons to come to stay strong mentally. Let's close by the talk today by me praying for you. Our Heavenly Father, I know there's so many people who are struggling with anxiety and depression. There are people who are struggling with fear, with insecurity, with loneliness. And so I just pray Give us all wisdom on how to best take care of ourselves when we're going through difficult times, and then give us the courage to do it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, I hope you found today's message helpful. I'm so grateful for guys like Dave who can just share with us. He's actually part of a group of pastors that we're in network with that I get together and meet with each year, and they invest into me. And then days like today, I get to share them with you. So I'm grateful for those relationships, and I hope you found it helpful. This week, we've got something special because our summer groups kick off this week, okay? And you can sign up. There's still time to sign up today by going to tmpspokane.com. There's a ladies group on Tuesdays and there's a guys group on Thursdays. They're both through Zoom, so you don't even have to wear pants because you can just stay right where you're at. You can stay at home, get on your phone, get on your computer, whatever it be, and join a group this summer. Head to the website, get signed up. Also, if you want to continue to participate in generosity, helping fuel the vision and mission of the meeting place to help people find and follow Jesus, you can give online as well. Well, next week, one last thing, next week, 4th of July weekend, there is no Sunday service online like this, okay? So just enjoy the weekend. If you don't have 4th of July plans, make some. Call someone from the church, get in a group and say, hey guys, who's doing something, and make some plans for next weekend. And then we'll see you online the following week as we kick off our summer series called Summer Mixtape. You're not gonna wanna miss it. All right, guys, I miss you, love you, and I hope to see you soon.